715-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're doing so, whatever works for y'all best, where you can see the show, chime in, as was a little chime right there, or bring up any of the things that you want to do, particularly during the progress of the show. That's the place for you to be. Well, I mean, locally anyway. Friday's coming, as I always say. The plenty just need a bumper sticker with that at this point. Friday is coming because, well, of course, it's one of our most important days of the week. But we got a lot of local stuff going on in the meantime, folks. Make no mistake about that. I have not yet seen the day in which I'm like, yeah, nah, nothing going on locally here, folks. Pack it in. Let's call it early. Meet you at the bar kind of situation. However much I might like to, we got a lot to get into, certainly. Among other things, delving further into more, among other things, city response to a couple of the propositions on the ballot as we are delving into those, including, well, from the city, also chamber talking more about Proposition K. Definitely a lot going on there, as well as, let's just call it the back and forth absolutely continues. And also more on pot policy and response, and an actual local connection to some of these national campaigns that are fomenting at this moment. A lot of announcements and door consideration around it, as well as, well, more when it comes to pollution considerations you can wrap in issues like what's going on with the international bridges with that, but also in pursuit policy. Very much a local issue, but also the impact it could be seen to have on some of the other things going on, including the other pursuits, other types of situation and enforcements going on in our region, as we have Ida Beza-Gardner chiming in with the high and the wave, Amber Banda rocking on as usual, and Austin Redford, happy Hump Day Radio family, and good afternoon. Good afternoon to you as well, Austin. Again, a lot to get into today, so let's just start with those ever so slightly getting talked about pretty much every show. Ballot propositions. Yeah, Prop K is the undeniable 800-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to all the propositions, but there's a lot of potential impact when it comes to all of these things. Taking a moment to mention Proposition I on the ballot there. That's the one that deals with some of the contributions to the police and firefighters pension fund. And so the actual director for the El Paso Police and Fire and Police Pension Fund spoke with our news partners over at KFOX 14. See the full story up with them on a similarly labeled item. Director for El Paso Fire and Police Pension Fund explains Proposition I on the ballot. That's the one that has the specific language about making it that the amount that is paid into the fund will be a minimum of 18%. The current city charter, one of the questions that have been brought up on that is that the fund, the amount paid into it cannot exceed 18%. So it'd essentially be flipping that stat. So that's a little bit of some of the information that goes on there. But again, the executive director for the fund, Tyler Grossman, told our news partners, quote, "The only thing this changes is the fact that if the fund were ever to get in trouble, then the city has the ability to put money in. It doesn't make them do it," and say that the contribution by the city will not likely change. So the proposition is less about the fund receiving money and more about the bond rate for the city. So that's a part of what's going on there and a part of what is being put forth in that item. But of course, Proposition K, as it continues to be the undisputed champion of attention, at the very least in the lead up to this election. I mean, seriously, the amount of billboards, mailers, roving billboards I've seen on this is, I can't remember a single political issue in our environment that has garnered more input, support, opposition, certainly the part I'm talking about there, but then just amounts of, well, funds being put onto it, which is another reason we'll be looking very closely at that 8-day out election report to see what some of those numbers look at, particularly today, or late yesterday, I guess I should say, the El Paso Chamber out with another perspective on Proposition K. Again, fuller article title from our news partners at KFOX 14. El Paso Chamber says Proposition K likely to end up in court and cost taxpayers money. Now, that is not an entirely unreasonable position. I do have to say, I know that there certainly is a a corner of the fight that the chamber is in. I don't think that's any particular secret. But to say that there would be some challenges to this, I mean, heck, I've been calling for this already. So our news partners at KFOX 14 spoke specifically with Executive Director for the El Paso Chamber, Andrea Hutchins, previous guest, or at the very least interviews on this show. Still hoping to get more of this perspective on these issues before we get to the, final day of going to the ballots. But she told our news partners, quote, "When you look at the court battles that are undoubtedly going to arise from this poorly written charter amendment, taxpayers of El Paso, including businesses that we represent, are going to be footing the bill for this." And I mean, of course, there's the important things going on when it comes to the idea of the way the grid is electrified and the potential purchase that comes along with it. And there is further response, including from Sunrise El Paso, in talking what it is to our news partners at KFOX 14, saying, quote, specifically in previous guests in the show, Dominic Chacon, communications coordinator for Sunrise El Paso, saying, quote, "Our current electric company is a monopoly in the region. We have no other choice, so we should not wait until they monopolize the solar energy industry. We can start moving forward at our pace." Now, one of the interesting things would be on either way, if this item moves forward or not, would be how that issue is addressed. Of course, there is a kind of a playbook that would be used if this item does end up passing and if people do end up voting it in. But I would find it very telling if this doesn't end up moving forward, even if the item doesn't move forward, because I mean, as much as it is policy based and something that could be done, I would be very interested to see how that part is particularly reflected. The idea of doing more city investment in solar as a decision that could be done by city council members out of this. But anyway, of course, an item that we haven't talked as much about, but feel reasonable to mention at this point, is that previously in recent weeks, article title from K, not from our news partners, but related to this article, from El Paso Matters, Prop K job loss warnings based on quote-unquote irrational study, new report says, because that's, I mean, some of the numbers, including the $170,000 in job loss and the some number of billions on the order of multiple of them, dollars of lost wages, a study being done in response to that one, that Idaho-based Points Consulting one being further analyzed by another group, saying that the way that study was put forth, an Austin-based consulting firm, they do have it fully linked over there, Idea Smiths, titled Decarbonization in the El Paso Region, a commentary on the technical and economic feasibility, approximately 23 pages, substantively including title page in length there. They do have it fully linked to see the response to that, and also the reasonableness that this study finds of the previous study. John Brazelton saying that he voted and everything was no, except for the school race. I guess that's not really a no vote possible there, but such is your choice. Going on to say the city county does nothing but spend money. I mean, there's an argument to be made that is kind of their purpose, but cutting it, or at least mitigating the way they do it, would probably be a more important thing than not, at least in my minds. But as is the course, of course, thank you for going to vote. And here is your bell. Appreciate you all doing, and anyone going out to vote, as I'll just continue to say, as the entirety of the time we're getting through this process, make sure to go out and vote, because if you have the ability to do so and you're not doing so, I'm not mad at you, but I am very disappointed. With that, let's go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. We got a lot more coming for you, including slightly on the lighter side, getting away from the maybe not entirely doom and gloom, but very serious politics. We have some fun things going on in our region, but still a business aspect that we'll be exploring, particularly with Vina Winery and their upcoming spring festival. Of course, some of that going on, but also just kind of what the environment has been for something like that type of business. We'll delve further into that, speaking with the owner there. So taking that first break, you are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines a little bit later as we do. Keep those comments going. And in any case, stay tuned right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash on northbound Zaragoza at Sunfire is slowing traffic. Right turn lane is blocked. Heavy backup to Tierra Este. Look for about 10-minute delays on northbound Zaragoza between the Loop and Montana. A crash on Rayner at Gateway West. That accident has the right lane blocked. And an earlier accident, police still working Pebble Hills eastbound at Sunfire. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
How could $1,000 change your life?
I could buy eggs.
Then listen for inflation compensation. Your chance to win $1,000 to combat high prices.
Honey, we're going to have eggs.
Yes! It's excellent. Be listening for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 through 5 p. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
This week on Red Pilled America, should artificial intelligence be stopped? To find the answer, we speak to an AI expert who tells us where AI is going. Listen to Red Pilled America on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Make the right choice for your home when it comes to windows and doors. For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and biggest inventory on in-stock windows and doors. The Window Depot is open to the public, so whether you're a homeowner or a contractor, you can shop the enormous warehouse. Browse the shelves with over 1,000 vinyl windows, interior and patio doors and skylights in several varieties and sizes available to go home today. Shop thewindowdepot.com or find a location near you. Lowest prices, biggest inventory.
Finding great people to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Their powerful matching technology delivers so many qualified candidates. It's like finding a needle in a needle stack. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at Facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Of course, continuing our conversation about the many things affecting us and going on in the Borderland region today with today's news and all those things that we usually do. But joining us right now, we do have Ken Stark, owner of Vina Winery, joining us in the studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Andrew. Nice to be with you.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about things. We've checked in with y'all a couple of times in recent-ish years, but we have another edition of one of y'all's big events coming up, the Spring Wine Festival for 2023 this weekend.
Yes, sir. One of our favorites. It gets here right before Cinco de Mayo. There's a rhyme in the reasoning. We're going to have the first party of the year,
Absolutely. So if anyone's been out there, y'all got the area right next to the main building, kind of just right off of, what is that the major street?
It's Highway
there?
28, but we have about 2 acres of grass,
right?
Trees, plenty of room for your kids to play, stuff for them to do at the festival. If you've never been to a festival, it's not just drinking wine,
Nope, absolutely.
We got bands, 3 bands each day, so live music all day. 70 plus arts and crafts and food vendors, plenty of different kinds of foods. You don't have to bring anything to eat. You don't have to bring anything to drink. We got you covered.
Absolutely. So that going on again this coming weekend, again, the 29th and 30th at the end of this month. And what are the hours that's going to be happening?
It's going to be from noon to 7 both days.
Noon to 7 both days. So this
Saturday
is
and Sunday.
The way I always kind of envision this is kind of wandering around the grounds, and then also lots of ladies with big floppy hats out there.
Yes. Well, sometimes it gets a little warm
in
the end of April, but it's going to be perfect weather, I think, in the 80s this year. So that's great.
So, of course, with all that going on, you got bands, you got vendors, you got things like that going on. So, again, with it opening up there, getting there early is often, I remember that paying off was the line, then kind of grows as you get a little bit later in the day. So, tickets are available at the door. Adult admissions, $20 per person, and then a $10 charge for those under drinking age.
Yes, that's correct.
Because there's still lots of, food, entertainment, other things going on.
Little kids are free, though. Under 12, they're 12 and under are free. So bring the whole family because there's stuff for them to do, too.
Absolutely. So again, and all the details we're talking about today, LaVinaWinery.com. That's LaVinaWinery.com to find the information there, and tickets will be available at the door. And when it comes to just, how it has been organizing it this year round, we've, of course, in the couple of years, at least the past few, we've been talking about this type of things and things going on with it. A lot of changes going on. So anything different, particularly this year, or that you have found yourselves either needing to do or able to do again?
Well, the change from pre-COVID to after COVID, of course, obviously it was a good festival, has always been a good festival in the spring, a very good festival, as a matter of fact. Last year, we didn't know, everything was just barely coming off of COVID. And so we were really pleased the turnout last year. And we really feel like, just like our regular business, that we'll be back to full sales and a full size festival this time, which will that's a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so basically back to true to form, and as close as, there's no going back to the past in any of the ways that is significant. So, basically as close to you can as to what you would have done, back in 2019 and before.
Yeah. And the attendees will come up to you and they'll say, man, we missed this. It's been, we love being out again. It's like your first chance to be out. But here it's just because of the summer and the spring, not just COVID. So it's not. Nobody's having parties until this time of year. So
it's either our what I refer to as our 2-week trial period, maybe plus or minus a couple of weeks of winter every year that we end up getting, and a little bit of windiness and other weather as it starts to maybe calm down around this point. So it's a good time of the year regardless. But then just when y'all, particularly that anticipation this year around, of course, y'all have the event coming up this weekend, so it's not clear to say how much of a turnout there will be, but just the kind of response that you'll have gotten this time around. I've gotten a sense and have heard from other promoters, organizers, etc., that people seem hungry/desperate to get out, and depending on the type of event, and go to things. Is that kind of what y'all are experiencing, or how would you categorize it?
Yeah, we had people come out last weekend saying, darn it, wrong weekend.
Okay.
and that happens, but they'll be back for the right weekend.
Fair enough. So people even showing up early, but have y'all gotten any other kind of sense from even just the reach out and response of people, buying tickets? Has that taken on a different pitch that it has in even just say recent years?
Well, we've never been a big seller of pre-sale tickets because we don't have an online presence, as you and I have talked about.
True.
Off mic. But we'll work on that next year to see if we can do something different.
Fair enough. Moving with the times in that way with it. So when it comes to kind of the general business concerns, and again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Ken Stark, owner of La Vina Winery. And again, they're not doing the ticket sales online, but again, you can find the information, LaVinaWinery.com, in which you can figure out all the things. And yes, there will be the sales at the door, so don't worry about that. But when it comes to just the kind of overall business.
And lines are not long at the door anyway. You don't have to have cash. We can use a Square or something like that. And there are ATMs on site if you need cash, but and several of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Good technical notes there. Absolutely. But so kind of in general business concerns, particularly with, y'all holding events like this and having stuff on site also as an event space in general. But then, of course, just with, the core of the business, the creation and sales of wine itself. How has it kind of fared for you all ever since? I think the last time we talked would either been last year or maybe in the last couple of years. How have things kind of been faring for you all business-wise?
It's actually freed up everything. Our other business, which is a lot of weddings and other types of events, are moving ahead at a normal pace as they were pre-COVID, and so we anticipate that we're going to have probably a record sales year this year.
Really? So have there been any I mean, as I'm assuming that there were some choices, some decisions, some things that had to be done in the midst of, I mean, particularly as you all are in New Mexico, and there were some differences across state lines when it came to restrictions and came into the regulations that were put into place. Are you feeling any real, would you say, lasting impacts from that? Any things that are continuing to affect the business, or has it pretty much been everything's been back opened up and returning to form?
No, everything's returning to form, and the what we lost from COVID, you can't recover that. It's just something that you didn't have, but you continue to have the since we produce grapes to make the wine that we make all of our wines there at La Vina, and we make all the grapes for those wines on our farm. So we're doing 100, maybe 130 tons of grapes, turning that into wine and selling it. That's what that's our business.
Right.
So that couldn't stop just because of COVID.
Sure.
And a lot. So we had to do a lot of wholesale sales to other wineries of finished wine and stuff like that. And it's not as profitable as doing retail events. So we're much happier doing what we're doing. This is what we do. We don't do a lot of wholesale. In fact, we do very little wholesale. 95% of what we do is right at the winery. So that's these are important events, not just the two festivals, but all the events that we have. And not having COVID makes it a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And those considerations changing for it. So kind of then looking forward as to what you're all doing. Again, you mentioned a couple of things that y'all may be looking at, including more of online availability for this, kind of changing with the times and people the way they are willing to do and buy these kind of things. But anything else that you all are now kind of looking at in terms of continuing to change and evolve with the business and this kind of continuing opening up of what people are able to do?
I think that because we've been through COVID once, the people that work with us in the tasting room will probably push us to do something as an online presence just in case. Because during COVID, we were having to do like tastings, online tastings.
Right.
Let me tell you, having an online tasting with all your friends on the internet doesn't work nearly as well as having them over to the winery to do that. So we may be looking at having something that now will take care of those tickets for you or take care of that wine purchases. But the wine is a little bit harder because selling wine online is just a difficult thing. How do you justify it? How do you make sure that person is of age?
Right.
And all those things. We have to work out a few bugs to make sure that and probably that means to go through a third person to take care of those problems.
Yeah, third-party vendors kind of thing. So, I mean, those are the challenges that you find not even just in recent years, but of the modern world, I'm sure, in the way patterns of buying and attendance are changing. But again, if people want to go out and see this for itself, again, the Spring Wine Festival at La Vina will be happening this coming weekend. Again, the 29th and the 30th. Again, tickets available at the door if you want to find it. Again, 4201 Highway 28 in La Union. And so, I mean, it'll be going on again from noon to 7 each day, right?
Yep.
All right. So again, find that out there. Again, all the details are online, lavinawinery.com. So again, guest right now has been Ken Stark, owner of La Vina Winery. Thank you very much for coming out to talk with us a bit about what you got coming up, going on, and some of the things that have been going on and the challenges you all have faced and have come through here today.
Thanks a lot for having me, Andrew. I had a big time.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll be back with more Talk El Paso and getting closer to opening up those phone lines. So stay tuned for more on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. There are 11 different propositions on the ballot that would make amendments to the city of El Paso's charter. Early election is already underway in this proposition ballot for El Paso. KFOX 14 spoke to the executive director of the El Paso Fire and Police Pension Fund about Proposition 1 and what change would be made if it is approved by voters. Tyler Grossman said that the approval of Proposition 1 would not only strengthen the pension fund for police and firefighters, but also allow the city of El Paso to get a better bond rating, and he's convinced that a better bond rating would keep current members from leaving the city in fear that their pension fund might not be there once they retire. And on average, Americans eat 46 slices of pizza a year, according to a new study. That's a lot of pizza. And with this in mind, betting.com crunched the numbers to reveal how much you can expect to spend on a takeout pizza in 50 cities across the country. And guess what? El Paso ranks among the cheapest cities in the country to get pizza. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. We're going to see a chilly one. Flows most areas getting down into the 40s, so maybe a light jacket or jacket as you head out for your Thursday morning. Breezy and milder for tomorrow afternoon as we see a high around 83 degrees. Gustier for your Friday, partly cloudy skies with a high around 82, and then go cooler again for your Saturday, mostly sunny, high 78. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 in new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram sales in March. While other dealers continue to sell their vehicles for over MSRP, we continue to have the best prices in town.
Get huge savings on hundreds of new and certified pre-owned vehicles during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, get $5,000 off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, plus super low 4.9% APR for 72 months. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport and $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Dodge Durango SUVs. Worried about your trade or credit? Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect, or if you owe more than your trade is worth. Trade and upgrade for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 4.9% APR, 1606 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
I'm Ben Ferguson. And I'm Ted Cruz. A political cover-up involving Hunter and Joe Biden, a bombshell whistleblower. Did Attorney General Merrick Garland lie to Congress?
We're covering it all on Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Download it now wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Verdict with Ted Cruz.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. I got a lot of stuff going on that we're talking about here in the area, because talking about the local issues, local impacts is the entire focus of our show. And I've long said that is our purpose. That's our focus, what we'll continue to do here. Never claimed that this show is for everybody, but it's definitely for anybody that wants to talk about the local things. And some of those over in the comments seeming to be mistaken on the idea of required attendance or treating it like a airport terminal and announcing their departure. Good luck and Godspeed. This ain't for you. It's not for you. But if you don't want to talk about local things, just kind of want to tune in, turn on, drop out, hey, there's literally nothing stopping you. But you want to talk about the local things, this is what we'll continue doing every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And meantime, a lot of talk, of course, about voting. Maria Coleman chiming in saying voted yesterday, and the turnout seemed brisk. So as is our format and our convention. Thank you for voting. But goes on to say most voters appear to be 50 plus. Noted that the results on Prop K seems split 50-50, a reflection of the nationwide political divide. If this trend continues, Prop K may be decided by the courts. Would be curious to know if you wouldn't mind commenting further on how you were seeing that split, because of course should be able to know what the actual voter results are as of yet. But if you're talking about like with the protesting or supporters, whatever going on outside that, what is it, like the 100-foot barrier out of the way of it? I mean, that would make a level of sense. So if you wouldn't mind clarifying that, would love to know what you're talking about there. But I will say that the age gap there, we talked a little bit about yesterday with El Paso Matters, actually putting it out that more than half of all voters, 65 and over. And that is absolutely continuing on with the trend. Again, would certainly recommend, if you're interested more in local topics, Bob Moore at Bob Moore News over on Twitter. Noting today that after 2 days of early voting in the city of El Paso, only 311 people under 30 have voted. Yes, 311. Not a phone number, the total number of people that are aged 30 and under who have voted. Yeah, or actually, I guess 29 and under, technically. And the number of voters over 65 is almost 15 times greater. Their tabulation about 4,500 and change. And so, yeah, they got into the idea of that the older generation is dominating the voting so far. And by my calculations, depending on if you include mail-in ballots returned already or not, we're looking at about 1.6, 1.8% of all eligible registered voters for this election, because, of course, it's not the entire county, so not the entirety of the registered voters in El Paso County, because, well, again, so we had at least one person reach out to me saying that they were disappointed they didn't get a voice in this, which I certainly understand. But yeah, let's just say, even if this item were to pass, I kind of agree with the idea that this might not be done with when it comes to other input, court cases, etc. That's just my expectation on the matter. But we are only in the second day, well, third day now, of early voting, 2 full days in the books that these numbers are based upon. So, okay, I'm not even willing to say fully optimistic, because, I mean, if I was to celebrate at 1.8%, I would be checking my own brain if it was having holes in it, because I think that we got a lot more needing to come with this. So that's just some of the updates on the voting. So yeah, we definitely have more to go, but the turnouts, yeah, that kind of bears out with what Maria is talking about there. So we get thank you again for doing your civic duty and going out to vote. A couple other things I want to mention before we get towards the end of the hour, and also opening up those phone lines, is a couple of specific things. I mean, vehicular pursuits have been at issue in a variety of different ways in our region recently. We both had, Border Patrol, CBP, DHS agencies in general involved in that kind of a thing, coming under scrutiny. Let's call it early to middle of last year, when there was at least one deadly crash involving evasion from pursuit by suspected human smugglers, and of course their human cargo, that led to some policy reviews we've talked about previously. And now the policies that are being placed by particularly Texas DPS state troopers when it comes to the Operation Lone Star enforcement actions happening in our area, the parts that we often end up talking about as the enforcement actions, with the what I refer to as rabbiting, what they refer to as ditching, or just the attempted enforcement or suspected pulling over of those suspected of doing human smuggling, and when they more than infrequently end up flooring it and trying to get away, and either crashing into someone or something, or at the very least end up ditching the vehicle, but I refer to it as rabbiting for that point. Those policies have been coming under question, and now actually, as of today, from El Paso Matters, jury finds EPPD officers violated pursuit policy in deadly chase, referring to a 2016 vehicular pursuits that the jury actually finding that among other things, the city of El Paso voting to appeal the verdict instead of paying more than $300,000 to the family of Annette Martinez, who died by being hit by a vehicle the police officers were chasing. So another kind of tidbit on maybe some evaluation of these policies and what's coming with it, an appeal going on in that case. But just one of those things that kind of is compounding issues we're definitely experiencing in our area, and is very much locally generated. Also kind of related to another thing, a lot of focus on pollution, or what could be seen around the Bridge of the Americas area if there was to be that expansion, particularly of the cargo areas. And another thing El Paso Matters reporting on El Paso, Las Cruces rank high in ozone pollution in 2023, with a particular focus on the ports of entry in their reporting as well. So check out that most recent article. And I know this is going to rile some things, but the national campaigns, yeah, we're not blind to it. It's just not the local aspects we usually focus on. Either the official launch, first rally anyway, of the Trump campaign nationally, and now as of yesterday, I do believe technically, even if it was telegraphed well in advance, the official launch of the Biden re-election campaign. And I will say this, that, I mean, we're obviously going to see campaigning in our area, but one that has actually just been posted over on El Paso Inc., article titled, Escobar Added to President Biden's Campaign Leadership. And so in speaking with El Paso Inc. today, Escobar said, I was not anticipating all being asked. I didn't even know I was in the running, quote unquote. And she actually has been asked by the Biden campaign to serve as one of the national campaign co-chairs. Now, not entirely clear, I have to say. I mean, there's a bunch of different national co-chairs, at least a half dozen or so, but what impact that might have on some of the local campaigning is one of the aspects I'll be wanting to look further on. Escobar saying further again to El Paso Inc. When it comes to particularly border policies, Title 42 certainly at issue there. But Escobar said was, quote, he has definitely tried, but has been hamstrung by a number of things, referring to the administration and the current president. First and foremost, what he inherited was a completely broken system. Later on, that fact that Congress hasn't acted on reforming the country's outdated immigration laws in decades. So that'll be probably some of the campaign lines going on here. But the fact that there's a very specifically local aspect of this is one, again, we'll be wanting to keep an eye on. Makes me wonder if there's going to be more specific campaigning as we get closer to 2024 coming to our area because of this. Not aware of anything at least complimentary in that way of local campaign chairs on the Republican side of things, but would be curious to know if that might happen in the near future. Wanted to check in on the Texas legislature also for a bit, because there's been actually a lot going on there. One thing actually going on today is that from our local representation, Rep. Claudia Ordaz, tweeting today that the hashtag Made in Texas overwhelmingly passed the Texas House today. That creates a labeling standard when the majority of the product is made in Texas. House Bill 2194 will positively impact our local economy and bring even more pride to our Texas-made products. That's an interesting one. And so the Made in Texas standards now passed through the House, as I believe that she did end up proposing. So that's a little bit of the local aspect. We need to probably be checking more in with our local state delegation once we get through this election stuff, as we're getting pretty close to sine die when it comes to the Texas legislature. But we'll have a little bit of time to talk about it at least. But as much as I've said that there's that potential for loggerheads between the two chambers of the Texas House and Senate, yeah, it seems like the logjam might begin a little bit more. At the very least, animosity. Texas Tribune, their article title out today, House-Senate animosity bubbles over with clashes on property taxes, education, subtitled, with threats of a special session and a derisive moniker, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick tries to pressure the House Speaker into acting on his conservative priorities. I mean, it's no secret that Republicans, conservatives in general, control both houses of the Texas legislature, and if I'm not mistaken, every statewide elected office, unless I'm completely forgetting one. But that doesn't mean that everything is going to be smooth sailing, particularly as different priorities are in place and personalities certainly come into place as well. I mean, Dan Patrick, it's no secret that as lieutenant governor, he is a very my way or the highway kind of thing, and including the way he ends up doing his leadership with the Texas Senate specifically, which doesn't necessarily always go over well in the opposing House, or at the very least, in this case, does seem to be opposing, because specifically Dade Phelan, Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives, not exactly on board with Patrick's priorities, even if they are ending up being the same types of issues, including tax and property tax reform. They're very much in complementary veins, but the way they're going about it has led to, well, let's just say that Governor Dan Patrick has specifically been putting forth in TV interviews both the idea of how much better their plan is from the Senate side of things, but then also specifically pointing out, as the Texas Tribune notes, $1,060 versus $800 as the differences in how they are structured, or what his way of putting it forth on how much you will save. And then specifically, when actually referring to the speaker, Dade Phelan, referring to him as California Dade, trying to say that he is not on board with the Texas way of doing things, I guess, among other things, and saying that he's not doing it in the best way, particularly for seniors in Texas, and saying that the houses plan, which involves more formulaic changes as opposed to a sum total of the Senate plan, is essentially, when it comes to the homestead exemption, roughly doubling it, if not exactly, and therefore making it that much less that is then taxable. Anyone who has gone through the process that I'm still having that fun with on submitting the homestead exemption would have a similar type of analysis. And really saying that if this can't be done, that, of course, the lieutenant governor can't do it, but would strongly pressure on the governor in order to call a special session. For his part, Dade Phelan seems to be taking it somewhat in stride, including posting recently on social media posted on this week, actually, posting between two surfboards, saying, quote, "Stoked for some tasty waves on the Texas coast this summer after hashtag Texas Ledge hits its gnarly sine die." Basically, I guess, warming up to that moniker. John Browson chiming in saying the Texas House always has a rhino Republican as speaker. Don't know if he would totally end up agreeing with you on that point. But I mean, again, it's not even necessarily that the House is unwilling to touch it when it comes to how they redo this issue, though there are some other loggerheads that have been being reached, including how that might be approached when it comes to basically the vouchers, school savings accounts, however it ends up being formulated. There's been primarily within the House, I have to say, and particularly from rural districts, even those that are of the conservative persuasion, saying that they're not on board with it, particularly with the anticipated impacts to local school districts, some of which are pretty significant for those smaller communities. Tridasac chiming in over on the YouTube specifically saying, an increase to the homestead exemption is quickly absorbed by rising home values. It's no different than sticking a finger in the proverbial tank to stop a flood. I mean, I think that's at least part of the analysis, going back and forth about, okay, does it make sense to just up it now and then have that whittled away effectively, or does it make more sense to do essentially formula changes on how much can be changed, how much can be raised, what is considered taxable percentages, those kind of things. And that's the real impasse that we are, okay, maybe not entirely an impasse, because again, both sides of this issue, when it comes to, I mean, it's technically not even like a bipartisan effort. It's conservative versus conservative at this point, saying that, yeah, we want to deal with property taxes in Texas, but the exact method of doing so becoming just the real logjam that is leading to, just call it hardening lines for the moment. So that's some of what's going on in the Texas legislature. Some other things coming up, as further noted by the Texas Tribune on this. Texas kids would need parental consent to create social media accounts under House bill that has gotten initial approval and is a priority for Speaker Phelan. But then also there are other items that have been moving through the House, including panic buttons required for all Texas public school, or just school in general, classrooms, as well as armed security on site and other things like that. So there's still a lot to analyze as we get closer towards the end of this session, creeping ever onward. So let's go ahead and take that next break of this hour right now and go ahead and open up those phone lines as we normally do. Got a lot going on, a lot to talk about, and a lot that we want to hear from you about. So if you want to get on that line, add your 2 cents as we continue delving into the comments, along with Willie Jenkins chiming in right there. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On northbound Memorial Highway at Edgemere, an accident there has got the right shoulder blocked by the exit ramp. On the 54 southbound Stan Roberts to Kenworthy, on and off slowing, 45-minute delays. On the 10 eastbound between Trans Mountain and the 54 Patriot, looking at a 7-minute backup. And it's slow on the spur, eastbound Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the Loop, 5-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Haley, quote, Navage is the best thing I bought. I love it. My nose feels so clear now and I can breathe. I've been struggling with a stuffy nose for weeks. I bought Navage and it's amazing. Or this one. I use Navage every night, could not imagine life without it. I have 5 cats, and before I found Navage, I was a clogged mess. Now I breathe so much better, unquote. Those are 2 of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, let's force the city to buy the electric company for $8 billion.
It costs 8 times more than El Paso's budget.
Yeah.
Property taxes would skyrocket. That's an awful idea.
That's Prop K. And that's not all. Prop K shuts off water at some gas stations.
That's crazy. No bathrooms or water to stop a fire?
Small price to pay to stop pollution.
But the Environmental Protection Agency said most of El Paso's pollution comes from international sources, not us.
Let's pass it anyway.
Even if it means raising everyone's electric bills and property taxes and cutting police and firefighters?
Now you get it.
This is the worst idea ever. Who wrote this?
My neighbors did.
How can you call yourself an El Pasoan?
I don't. I'm from Austin.
Austin wrote it. Only El Paso can stop it. On May 6th, vote no on Prop K, the worst idea in El Paso history. Political ad paid for by El Pasoans for Prosperity PAC.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon podcast, why is everyone so sensitive now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Rosetta Stone, where language is learned. RosettaStone.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but if you want to chime in on any of them, whichever works for you. Other Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv, it's a good place to do so, particularly if you want to talk about the things going on or affecting us here locally. Yeah, that's our purpose. That's the idea. And we'll keep doing it as long as I got the opportunity to do so. So let's jump in on the phone line there right now. We do have on the line with us right now, Eric on the east side. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yeah, in regards to policy analysis, if one is ideologically motivated, they're going to find themselves with a lot of biases, like in assumptions, which prevent objective policy analysis.
Okay.
And if we look at, your analysis of Prop K, which, you're very against, based on your coverage, we could see that, you left out some really important information in regards to the city's study in relation, when you were saying that property taxes were going to be raised, and I was pointing out how that's a lie and how there's creative ways of financing that.
So if you're referring to, you say you disagree with me in my analysis, lie is a very strong word, because if you say that I'm wrong, go ahead and prove it. But if you're saying that I'm knowledgeably lying about that kind of thing, we're starting to get into some of those areas that let's just say you've gotten in trouble about here, but please go ahead. In this case, I'm willing to have an actual discussion with you because talking about policy, impacts of it, and where your positions actually lie is a good thing generally.
All right. Well, yeah, you purposely left out, like in the study it said that we can cut the waste and cut the waste of that the city spends on electricity and make the government buildings more efficient by 30%. If the city pays $12 million per year in electricity costs, that's going to save the city $3.6 million annually. And if you look at the other part of Prop K that says that we're going to be 80% by 2030,
right?
That's an extra, let's see, $6.7 million in savings. So by 2030, we're going to be saving $10.3 million per year in energy costs.
I think you're conflating a couple of terms here because you're saying that 80%, that does not mean 80% solar. The analysis that comes from that is carbon free, a lot of which is being talked about coming from specifically from solar, but there are other methods, other parts of it. I mean, literally Prop K also talks about the hydrogen production here. So, I mean, sure, solar panels is arguably and absolutely the major focus. It's the one that has the most explicit messages in Prop K, but 80% does not mean 80% solar specifically, to my reading of it.
Yeah, but that is implied. The solar panels is meant for the 80% renewable, and that's going to save millions and millions of dollars. And if we got $10.3 million times 15 by 2045, that's $154 million. I think Prop K is going to fail regardless because the misinformation being promoted is just too overwhelming. And young people don't vote. But if conservatives are supposed to care about reducing waste and increasing efficiency. So regardless if Prop K fails or not, we should be advocating for these investment grade audits that are going to reduce the amount of energy the city uses by 30% and saves the city $3.6 million annually. We should be pushing for the city to do that at the very least.
I mean, I would say that if it makes good fiscal sense, if it makes sense to end up doing these kind of savings, even if Prop K fails, like you are supposing there wouldn't be anything necessarily stopping it from moving forward as just a city initiative on its own. Prop K is intended to require it to be done, of course, and making it a matter of rote. But again, if you see savings can be realized, as you're stating, as advocating for and saying could be analyzed, I would say that Prop K's failure, again, which you're putting forth here, and I'm by no means advocating for Prop K's failure. I just have brought up questions on it, and I would again refer everyone to the 2-hour and change interview we did with the proponents of Prop K in order to hear directly from them, because we had questions and we wanted to know more about it. And so we have that, of course, over on our YouTube channel. We'll try to link that up again today. But let me just say that even if this were to fail, to my understanding, there's nothing that would be preventing this from being brought up in its own right, in its own packaging, because even from some people I've heard that like the idea but are not out totally on board with Prop K itself. It's been the scope and the aspirational nature of it. I mean, again, phrases like all available efforts, and what does that mean, being subject to whoever is elected at, whoever's ever on the body, those kind of things lead to some of the trepidation that I've heard from some have been on that side of things. So appreciate the point in the call. We'll, of course, keep talking about this. We got to take that break now to hit the top of the hour, but we want to keep talking about the issues and your perspective on them. Be happy to continue doing so. So taking that next break right now, coming out of this, we'll keep talking about it. And if you want to get on that line, don't forget that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No wrecks on your El Paso freeways, but here's some delays to check out. 54 southbound from Stan Roberts to Kenworthy is a 40-minute delay. Northbound Zaragoza between the Loop and Montana set you back 8 minutes. On the spur, 601 Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 5-minute delay. And eastbound Montana Avenue from McRae out to Zaragoza, 15-minute delays. Barry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
All day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The House is approving Speaker McCarthy's bill to raise the nation's debt ceiling. The bill includes pairing a package of spending cuts with a $1.5 trillion increase. It also limits growth of federal spending to 1% annually and claws back billions of dollars of unspent COVID relief funds. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the bill, however, will be dead on arrival in the Senate. Severe weather will threaten more than 36 million people in the South today. The National Weather Service says storms in North Texas will produce damaging winds, severe thunderstorms, and very large hail. Hunter Biden's attorneys are meeting with Justice Department officials to talk about his criminal investigation. Lisa Taylor reports.
The president's son was seen by CNN walking to DOJ headquarters this morning with his lawyers. Officials from the DOJ's tax division and the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office were also at the meeting, according to CNN. Trump-appointed Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss has been overseeing the probe.
Lisa Taylor reporting. Russian ground forces are bigger today than they were at the start of the war, despite suffering large losses. That's according to a senior U.S. military commander in Europe who told a House committee that the Air Force hasn't lost much and the Navy has lost only one ship. House Republicans are questioning the head of one of the largest teachers' unions over school closures during the COVID pandemic.
Americans are curious to know if the AFT access was in line with CDC past practice, and if their influence had a positive or detrimental impact on America's children.
During a congressional hearing today, Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup suggested the American Federation of Teachers had improper communications with the CDC concerning criteria to reopen classrooms. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Disney is suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The media company is alleging the governor has used a relentless campaign to weaponize government power to hurt its business. Last year, DeSantis urged Florida lawmakers to strip Disney of its self-governing power at its Walt Disney World Resort complex. Corrections offices in New York and New Jersey are launching the first of its kind interstate jail intelligence network. Natalie Migliori reports.
Suffolk County Sheriff Errol Toulon Jr. says the Corrections Intelligence Center will allow partnering corrections agencies to share data, trends, and best practices, along with potential threats across jails and prisons. The network will try to get ahead of potential issues by circulating trends regarding contraband, gang affiliations, and potential threats to jail and prison systems in the region. Correction offices taking part in the network currently include Westchester, Nassau, New York City, and Morris County in New Jersey.
The makers of Barbie are out with a doll that has Down syndrome. It's a big deal for families who care for someone with the developmental disability.
You're able to now show your loved one who may love playing with dolls that you're no different than anyone else.
Brian Lopez heads the Down Syndrome Association of South Texas. He hopes the doll will be a conversation starter as well, so they can dispel myths about the disorder. Lopez believes there will be a demand for the doll.
You either know someone or have someone in your family, because 1 in every 700 babies in the United States is born with Down syndrome.
In a statement, the toy maker Mattel said that they are dedicated to counter social stigma through play. There's a new owner of the iconic white suit that John Travolta wore in Saturday Night Fever. The three-piece suit was auctioned off by Julian's Auctions and Turner Classic Movies over the weekend, selling for $260,000. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Check. That's check. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
We live in a society where race trumps merit. New York Times bestselling author Heather McDonald joins me on The Truth with Lisa Booth to talk about why it matters. Listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Window Depot is more than a window store. The Window Depot is a one-stop warehouse with everything you need for your complete home remodel. Shop the aisles of pre-built cabinets in a variety of colors, granite and quartz countertops, sinks, skylights, and hardware to complete your project. Need a custom order? We can help. Our designers offer free design services and can special order everything you need for your kitchen or bathroom remodel today. Shop thewindowdepot.com or find a location near you. The Window Depot, more than a window store.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do.
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth at My Computer Career. The right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now.
Pray.com's Meditative Prayers podcast is the best way to bring God's perfect peace into your night. Each meditative prayer helps you focus on God, fight anxiety, sleep better, and more.
As you close your eyes, ask God to come and have fellowship with you. Open yourself to the Holy Spirit and ask Him to minister to you.
Listen to Meditative Prayers on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming over there, dropping those likes and reacts that we certainly always appreciate, including, we got here right now, Matt Olson, James Radcliffe, Bernadette Bandicoot, Marky Mendango, Amber Banda, Ion Grimm, Monaco Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Ida Besa Gardner, among others. And Monaco Cervantes specifically saying, looking forward to Chris Stapleton tonight, thanks to the show. I mean, yeah, we did have that giveaway, so appreciate you remembering that, because, yeah, that was a minute ago. So hope you enjoy the show. Let us know how it is. Kind of jealous I'm not going, but we got we got a lot of stuff going on. So other comments coming in, including Eric McNabb continuing on calling me a liar on this. But hey, we can continue talking about the points here. But if, again, it turns out that everyone that you disagree with is bad, evil, or being underhanded, all of them, makes you wonder about the point you're bringing up. Anyway, otherwise, and other points being made, including about how to actually talk about issues that are important to you. It's one thing to always attack other people. It's another thing to actually talk about what's important to you, and I'm always going to prefer the latter. And other questions that, no, we have we've made it very clear anytime we have issued permanent bans on this program, and it was not the case in this case. So we have issued temporary ones in cases of specific bad behavior that is not necessarily explicitly prohibited by our policies, but let's just say we're not going to be similar type activities that's happened this most recent times will not be allowable in the future. Make that point perfectly clear. Libel, slander, threats of suits, if it's going to threaten the future of the show, it's not going to be happening. Anyway, get back to that phone line now. Again, the phone lines are open if full up at the moment. Keep that number handy, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Been trying to think about all the about propositions.
Sure.
I'm just a little. I'd like to find out what your take is on Proposition B. That's one of them.
Okay, Proposition B. Let me pull that one up here.
And B, F, and I, if at all possible. Just to me, let's start with Proposition B.
Okay, Proposition B, the one that reads, should the section of the city charter relating to leases, franchises, and conveyances be amended to authorize city council to lease city-owned property for 40 years or less by council resolution or ordinance? Now, when it comes to pretty much all of these, it was even printed as part of this most recent weekend's El Pasoing. The El Paso Matters Voter Guide is I would say, a pretty good resource for particularly the background information, because I am by no means a complete expert on all aspects of the city charter. I've perused many different parts of it over the time, but basically their synopsis on this would be requiring to leasing city-owned property for an initial term of 40 years or less by resolution or ordinances, and leases longer than 40 years by ordinance. Basically, the way they put it is that resolutions more easily approved, don't require a public hearing, and ordinances require formal introduction, council meeting, public hearing, and second reading. So it's essentially the amount of steps that has to be taken in order to currently do this. Basically, their analysis is that the charter doesn't currently differentiate on what is required to do so. So I would say this is maybe making it a little bit clearer and maybe making it easier for the short-term aspect of it if you want to go that way with it.
Okay. I'm trying to find why would this have even come up? What are they getting at? In other words, is there a specific instance that something came up that this would be applied to?
Not that I'm strictly aware of. I mean, I'm sure it has, because otherwise, why would it have come up? But it's not one that I'm specifically aware of in this case that led to this. One initial instance I can point to you as well, outside of the fact that there has been a lot of leasing or moving around of city property. I mean, all of the other city facilities that were getting leased, both around the pandemic, and also, I mean, we've seen the kind of dispersion of city departments from being solely within the city hall building ever since, its demolition initially, just over 10 years ago now, as of this month. And so I guess the leasing of other properties, particularly for offices, other storage space, clinics, those kind of things, has been an issue, certainly within recent years, is what comes to mind for me.
Okay, that's fine. How about F?
So Proposition F, that's the one that reads, so the section relating to the initiative.
And I'm reading El Paso Matters too. And
okay, good.
Their explanation, I'm just not getting it.
Okay, fair enough. So for those playing along at home, so the section relating to the initiative petition of the city charter be amended to remove the requirement for a second petition and institute a process for the public to initiate a city ordinance. So as El Paso Matters puts on this one, there is the requirement in some instances for there to be 2 series of petitions in order to get something on the actual ballot. Now, there have been, of course, a lot of recent petitions, more than I would say that I can really remember. That's what I'm willing to say on that. We've had some that were against it, but this was at the county level, of course, when it came to the certificate of obligations bonds that were being proposed for UMC and the county hospital district. We had, of course, Proposition K came out of a petition, and then we've had some other ones, I want to say, actually F itself came more or less directly out of a petition drive, but the process for it to get on the ballot is that it was effectively proposed to city council, and then city council had there are some that, of course, there was a push for it to end up on the November ballot. City council said basically, we want it to go on to the next ballot, and there were some you might remember, and I don't have this one right in front of me, so it might take me a minute after next break. There were certain groups like Justicia Fronteriza that put on other items, other ballot petitions that were going on out there, or what they hoped would end up on the ballot anyway, regarding campaign finance within the city of El Paso. Those did not end up going on to, at the very least, this ballot, and I'm not sure if they are still considered viable for future ones, or if that would have to be a new effort. So particularly the part where they're talking about the ability to, through solely citizen initiative, for there to be the ability to get it on the ballot with or without council approval, is another, I guess, important aspect of this. Personally, I'm fully in favor of more avenues and more accessibility when it comes to our processes of local government. I know there are some that are saying, well, it put this item that I don't like on the ballot, therefore why should I like it? But here's the thing: when it comes to political tools, they're available to everyone that's willing to put in the time and effort and organization into it. So I'll say, on the balance, I am in favor of this one, if only because it might make things more interesting in the future. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, having to do with that, Proposition K, of course, comes to mind.
Sure.
I'm just, how many signatures needed to be for them to have this on our ballot this last time? I think they had to have something like 40,000, right?
I think that was more or less, I think that the total was ending up, I think it was 38,000 is what they had, and the ones fully verified was 35. I want to say the required amount was 25 or 30, though I might be mistaken on that. It was over the required amount by a certain percentage. I do remember that much, and I'm confident in saying that. So there are ways it can end up, but the approval processes and making it, if it's something that, well, essentially that is not being favored by city government at that time, making it viable that there is a path to actually getting it on the ballot. Again, those are the aspects I'm finding myself in favor of.
So they're saying that 75, if this passes, instead of requiring the 5%, it's going to be 7,500 signatures, which means that probably these people from outside of El Paso can do this once again to us, right?
Again, I get it in terms of a specific item that you're concerned about, but
7,500 signatures, I don't think would be a hard thing for anybody to get. Okay, so that's one I didn't understand. Okay, so and Proposition I.
Yeah, Proposition I. We mentioned that one a little bit at the top of the show. So just to reference back to that, our news partners at KFOX 14 have, at least in part, an interview with the director for the El Paso Fire and Police Pension Fund on their perspective on this. This one is let me just read the language here real quick for, again, those playing along at home. Proposition I, scroll down to that one. Should the section relating to police and fire pension fund be amended to establish that the city of El Paso shall contribute to the El Paso Policemen and Firemen Pension Fund no less than 18% of the total amount expended for wages of the participants, and any increase to the contribution rate shall be as allowed by state law. So I'm going to reference back to El Paso Matters on this, because this one is, you start talking about contributions and percentages, it starts getting decently complicated. They note that the charter currently caps the city's contribution towards the retirement fund at that 18%. Part of the interview that was done, again, with that director for the pension fund, says that this would make it, of course, now the minimum amount that could be contributed, but could also make it effectively more. Directly quoting from him, this one is Tyler Crossman, executive director, again, for that pension fund, saying, quote, "The only thing this changes is the fact that if the fund were ever to get in trouble, then the city has the ability to put money in and doesn't make them do it." So, this does end up contributing more to it by matter of rote. So I will say it's definitely up to your decision about how you want these things in order to be funded right now. And they do note that of the fund from the most recent, or this fiscal year, translated to about $32 million from taxpayers at that current 18% level.
So if we decided to go higher than that, that would mean that the taxpayers would have to pay a lot more, right?
Percentagely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess that's. I appreciate your take on all these things.
Sure.
And one other thing, I'd like to find out from Raul, does he really truly believe that Biden should be running our government? If you could ask him that, I would appreciate that.
All right, fair enough.
I'd like to know his take on it.
All right, fair enough. We'll put that question if we get that call there. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Well, stay well, stay safe. Let's go, Brandon.
Fair enough here. All right. And with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. So if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. Of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso fires responding to a crash on Gateway North at Trans Mountain. Stop and go traffic on the 54 southbound Stan Roberts to Kenworthy is a 25-minute delay. Slow traffic on the I-10 sets you back about 9 minutes between Trans Mountain and the 54 Patriot. And a stalled trucks blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at the Mesa Street exit. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon Podcast.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon Podcast, why is everyone so sensitive now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon Podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, let's force the city to buy the electric company for $8 billion.
It costs 8 times more than El Paso's budget.
Yeah.
Property taxes would skyrocket. That's an awful idea.
That's Prop K. And that's not all. Prop K shuts off water at some gas stations.
That's crazy. No bathrooms or water to stop a fire?
Small price to pay to stop pollution.
But the Environmental Protection Agency said most of El Paso's pollution comes from international sources, not us.
Let's pass it anyway.
Even if it means raising everyone's electric bills and property taxes and cutting police and firefighters?
Now you get it.
This is the worst idea ever. Who wrote this?
My neighbors did.
How can you call yourself an El Pasoan?
I don't. I'm from Austin.
Austin wrote it. Only El Paso can stop it. On May 6th, vote no on Prop K, the worst idea in El Paso history. Political ad paid for by El Pasoans for Prosperity PAC.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter. Locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
Imagine buying a pair of sneakers and getting a soothing, gentle foot massage like you'd get during a relaxing pedicure just by walking. Skechers' new Massage Fit sneakers. Because Skechers, the comfort technology company, has designed a unique innovation that makes it feel like you're pampering your feet with a gentle massage in every step. The secret is Skechers' new patented wave technology on the sole that gently massages your feet while you're walking around. Find them for men and women at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of commentary coming in from there, including Ed Clore chiming in. People will sign anything if they think they're getting free stuff. Very few read what they were signing. I got to tell you, that is just not a good policy to go through life is. If I'm signing my name on something, you bet your buñuelos I'm reading what the heck that is, because otherwise, well, that's just how scams happen. Like literally, there's one of those alerts that comes through about dealing with things in other countries that, oh, hey, here, sign up to help the children. Okay, now give me $50. You just agreed to give me $50. Like, seriously, it's bad. So I'm just saying, if people are truly that willing to do it, something, fools and their money soon parted, etc. Anyway, let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast in line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I just heard a commercial against Proposition K, and the people who put that commercial together should state that it's fictional in nature, because they have some guy saying he's from Austin. No, he's an actor. Okay, he's not from Austin. Okay, it's a fictional conversation between two people. Now, I'd like to talk about an article that Dr. Kathy Stout had published in the El Paso Times.
Okay.
I know you've had her as a guest on your show in the past, and one of her concerns revolved around the book she and her co-authors wrote a couple of years ago about who controls
rules El Paso. Mm-hmm.
The plutocrats who control El Paso, the people who contribute large sums of money to politicians. Now, I'm pretty sure that this effort against Proposition K is steered by some of these very same people. And I guess what they want is monopoly capitalism, the kind that J.P. Morgan, the monopolist, the plutocrat of way back, is doing on El Paso. What a great system, only one provider. Makes you wonder, how much should they be allowed to charge, huh? Now I know that every time that they go for a rate increase, they have to go in front of the Texas Utility Commission.
Sure.
But I'll guarantee you that commission is staffed or populated by people that Republican politicians put in those positions that are friendly to industry. There's not. I guarantee you, there's not environmentalists on those things, or people from the other side of the aisle. It's people from the business community, and those are the ones that steer things through money. That's the sad reality of it, you know. Now, as far as these flyers, I've gotten 5 so far. I've gotten 3 against and 2 for.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of money is being spent on this thing.
Certainly.
And what Dr. Kathy Stout has to say about this is that these are the powers that she wrote about that are behind this thing, you know. And she points out that this study that was done by the Chamber of Commerce from a company in Moscow, Idaho, raises what she says hyperbolic warnings and fears of what could happen with the climate charter. And she says that it seems like the study's founders are oblivious not only to the harm that is being done to the environment by the fact that we continue to spew, or industry continues to spew, billions of CO2 into the atmosphere. And it has warmed the planet. So says NASA. So says the Pentagon. It's really happening, and it's being caused by human beings. It's being caused by the energy plutocrats. And so unless we have somebody other than them and their purchased politicians in charge of this thing, then the air is not going to get a whole lot better. And we live in a dirty, dirty city. And we really need to be looking at this thing. You know, the thing is, the reason J.P. Morgan buy El Paso Electric is because it makes money. It's a money maker. You know, they make about 8% on their money per year. And, you know, at 8%, using the rule of 72, where you divide the number 72
Sure.
as a constant by the rate of return, 8, you get 9. They'd be doubling their money every 9 years. The city needs to be part owner of that. We don't have to buy it all at once. We could do it in little chunks at a time by, again, turning those inevitable rate increases into equity so that we get into that business and start moving in the direction of solar energy, renewable energy, clean energy. Otherwise, again, go with a monopolist plan. They bought the Supreme Court. They own enough politicians so that they can continue to pollute the environment to the harm of all Americans and the globe as a whole.
I mean, I don't think there's any contravention on that. I mean, the reason, that El Paso Electric was purchased is because, I mean, it wasn't a charitable action by any means. You don't shell out literal billions. I mean, like, was it $4.3 billion dollars in order to buy something that's, we'll probably lose some money on it. Like, no, that's not how that works. And I mean, as much as you don't seem to like the Texas Utilities Commission or those organizations, I will say City Council also usually has their part on it. And I cannot recall a time, at the very least in some of the most recent rate cases, when City Council said, this is fine, because, well, they'll be hearing from their constituents on it. So, I mean, there are multiple layers that it goes through. Basically, the way I kind of describe it is that they end up, the rate case increase is asked for, goes through the process, at least one no comes down, ends up going through a judicial-ish type process. It's not like a full court case, but there is, hearings and stuff like that involved with it. And they come out with about half of the increase that was asked for previously. Now, again, I'd be curious to know, I haven't seen much actual study and impact on what would be to do this outside of Prop K, the actual, electrification by renewables, et cetera, particularly of city facilities. And I don't think there would be anything prohibiting that, even if some of the propositions within Prop K itself, I have increasing questions about. I mean, not even just the potential legal challenges, as the chamber has been bringing up as of this week, but also of new laws being passed within, as we brought up in recent weeks, through the Texas legislature that may put, like, particularly on like the water restrictions and things like that, a lot of restrictions within the state of Texas. And again, the Attorney General for Texas, Ken Paxton, has shown himself more than willing to be ideologically litigious. So I would fully expect that would happen if this item were to actually be passed and come into happen. Now, of course, there have been more than a few questions raised about parts of that, particularly that initial study that was done by the chamber. The Points Consulting, I believe, based out of Idaho, as you mentioned there. And we were also mentioning today the other kind of response study being done by Idea Smiths, based out of Austin, which on the executive summary, the first bullet point after the first paragraph comes in after, well, I'll just say it. This report seeks to accomplish two goals: assess the Chamber's study assumptions, and two, provide context of that other studies have found. We find that, again, first bullet point, the Economic Impact Assessment commissioned by the El Paso Chamber of Commerce makes fundamentally flawed assumptions about scope of the ordinance and energy availability, which in turn drives their projections for massive economic disruption. I mean, basically, the way it's been put forth, including in previous interviews, been done by El Paso Matters and others when it comes to the scope, 170,000 jobs lost, and therefore the umpteen billions being lost in wages due to that. I think that was like 7 to 9 billion on its own. I might be conflating it within the purchase cost estimates. A lot of billions getting thrown around in the analysis of all of this, but specifically the response, particularly from the Sunrise El Paso group on that, saying that that would be essentially the bottom falling out of hey, if it's not renewable, it can't happen anymore, and there being a complete lack of power generation on that, which would be something I'm opposed to, but I also don't know is a totally reasonable point to be made based on the analysis. I mean, among other things, the actual electrification, the purchase of El Paso Electric, but by the city's analysis. And as much as there has been controversy surrounding the studies and counter study, I haven't heard much contravention of the numbers that the city has put forth, specifically on what the infrastructure costs, the yearly costs for the support of the department, as well as essentially the study on it. That's the actual even beginning to look at purchasing of actually like putting into place efforts to purchase, or the municipalization, however you put it, of El Paso Electric would take about 8 to 10 years once those two multi-year studies are completed. So that's some of the numbers and some of the factors I'm looking at when it comes to this, and at least in some of the questions we've also been asking about those involved with this. So I don't think that's, again, some of the numbers coming out of the, let's just call it the initial study, are totally reasonable. But I do think that there are questions about, again, particularly what does all available efforts mean, as raising just a lot of questions for those wondering about what they should vote on this item.
Yeah, that's all about one of the strategies. Raise questions about the harmful effects of tobacco, or raise questions about the harmful effects of burning of fossil fuels. All you got to do is raise some questions and, of course, say, and they'll raise your taxes. Oh, yeah, and that's going to stop it. The bottom line is the city needs to invest to make money so that tax increases could be minimized. Capitalists shouldn't be allowed to own everything, like the air, the water, and politicians. And capitalists need to be regulated to prevent abuses, rip-offs, dangerous and harmful products and practices. And I'll end this to remind Ben to counter his little saying. Trump will forever be known as a president that was so full of it that the whole country ran out of toilet paper.
So then, okay, just to Ben's exact question, and thank you for reminding me of that, do you feel, as he asked, that Biden will be the best to lead the country? And this, if we're put forth as the next candidate, I guess would be the supposition there.
Infinitely better than Trump. Trump's presidency rated an F for me, F for foobar, and he's a traitorous moron. He's the only thing that I remember that Bush, I thought that was a murderous moron, but they forgot about Bush. They were all in for him, all in on that war, stay the course, all the way until they weren't, and then they didn't even invite him to the presidential nomination. He was such a disaster himself, got us into a stupid, unjust war, and they spent trillions on that. Didn't have any trouble spending money on that, and then he crashed the economy of the Great Recession. That's what he handed over to Obama, under whom the economy recovered, and who left Trump a recovered economy that Trump went on to crash. Yes, he would be infinitely better than Trump again.
I guess that's kind of an answer. So, okay, well, appreciate the point in the call and talking about the local issues for what it is, but I guess that last one was called for there. So anyway, do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We'll overdue for that next break. We got more calls on the line. And again, if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. Of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. There are 11 different propositions on the ballot that would make amendments to the city of El Paso's charter. Early election is already underway in this proposition ballot for El Paso. KFOX 14 spoke to the executive director of the El Paso Fire and Police Pension Fund about Proposition 1 and what change would be made if it is approved by voters. Tyler Grossman said that the approval of Proposition 1 would not only strengthen the pension fund for police and firefighters, but also allow the city of El Paso to get a better bond rating. And he's convinced that a better bond rating would keep current members from leaving the city and fear that their pension fund might not be there once they retire. And on average, Americans eat 46 slices of pizza a year, according to a new study. That's a lot of pizza. And with this in mind, betting.com crunched the numbers to reveal how much you can expect to spend on a takeout pizza in 50 cities across the country. And guess what? El Paso ranks among the cheapest cities in the country to get pizza. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso fires on the scene of a crash Gateway North at Trans Mountain. Traffic delays eastbound on Trans Mountain approaching Gateway North. I-10 eastbound is slow, 12-minute delays eastbound between Trans Mountain and the 54 Patriot. On the spur, eastbound Liberty Expressway from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 5-minute delay. And Memorial Highway northbound at Edgemere, an earlier crash is off on the right shoulder by the exit ramp. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. We're going to see a chilly one. Lows most areas getting down into the 40s, so maybe a light jacket as you head out for your Thursday morning. Breezy and milder for tomorrow afternoon as we see a high around 83 degrees. Gustier for your Friday, partly cloudy skies with a high around 82, and then go cooler again for your Saturday, mostly sunny, high 78. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
We live in a society where race trumps merit. New York Times bestselling author Heather McDonald joins me on the Truth with Lisa Booth to talk about why it matters. Listen to the Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Beat the heat and stay cool this summer with flavors as unique as you. Polar Pops from Circle K stay colder longer, so you can stay cool and refreshed wherever you go. Visit your local Circle K for your one-of-a-kind 99-cent Polar Pop, the thirst-quenching drink that stays colder longer. Whether you're driving the kids to camp or lounging by the pool this summer, make sure to stock up with a 99-cent Polar Pop from Circle K. Just another reason to Circle K every day.
Staples has everything you need to travel, from passport photos to luggage. And now get 20% off your in-store purchase when you buy any travel service, like passport photos in just 10 minutes. In-store only. Offer ends 4/29. Exclusions apply. Get all set to jet at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program, as we're getting closer to the end, but we'll still squeeze on the phone calls we can, so keep that number handy if you want to get on the line. It's available right now, actually, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. KTSM, that is, squeezing in what we can before the end of the program. So let's just jump right back into it. Get a couple of comments here first, including Ion Grimm, not happy with the last answer there, calling it a kind of a cop-out there. But also Marky Mandingo saying El Paso Electric won't sell Poco y Pocos. Shareholders won't like it. Yeah, I don't see this being a piecemeal type operation. I would think that would be unreasonable. But again, I think there are other points that could be brought up or explored about, I mean, whatever the fate of Prop K, of course, if it were to pass, this would be immediately investigated. But even if it doesn't, about the renewable electrification, particularly of city facilities, wouldn't see it being totally out of the question. Anyway, other things coming up, and other points being made, including the idea that because I disagree with you, I'm lying. Good luck with that, not even just here, but in life. And also Ion Grimm saying, good thing questions were asked about the effects of cigarettes, including lung cancer and emphysema. I mean, I know there's the whole thing about there. I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just asking questions. But like, no, seriously, we have asked questions when it comes to what does all available efforts mean, and the fact that it's kind of nothing off the table. I mean, again, we did a 2 hour and change interview with the Prop K proponents and writers. And I mean, everything from tax incentives to bond issues to eminent domain is on the table. So that doesn't exactly narrow it down in my mind. So the best answer I've come up with is that it would be up to who's on city council and who's on that advisory board, which still doesn't really satisfactorily answer that for me. I got to say, if you got a different perspective on it, would love to hear from you. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get to those phone lines we got on the line. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to get distracted today by Raul's ranting and hyperventilating delusions. I'm going to stick to my topics.
Okay.
So what I want to talk today is about the importance of everybody's vote, guys.
Sure.
Get out there and vote. Take your family and tell your friends to go vote no on Proposition K. I'm sure everybody remembers about Duranguito, right?
No, sure.
So it was a quarterly of life bond, $180 million, and it passed in 2012. That had vague language, just like this Proposition K does. The city found itself in litigation in 2016 for approximately 7 years. In January of 2023, the city filed a motion to dismiss in the Texas Supreme Court. That lawsuit cost the city $3.3 million, and the city says they have $155 million left to continue. But had it not been for Max Grossman and his love for architectural history, Duranguito would have been demolished. That was only $180 million, okay? Proposition K, on the other hand, is a multi-billion-dollar charter with vague language. Now, who would come to rescue the city after the wheels are in motion? No one. It would be a slow death for El Paso. All for causes that over 50 years, all predictions have been proven to be false, first under global warming phrase, now under climate change. They've all been proven false. The EPA recently stated that our pollution problems are an international problem, not an El Paso problem. So that's another factor that El Pasans need to take into consideration when they go vote no on Proposition K. On March the 3rd of this year, the Texas Tribune had a lengthy article. And in that article, they stated that as global efforts on the climate change have stalled on the global stage, groups like Sunrise Movement are using local localities as testing grounds for a youth-led climate activist group, okay? So now we're a test ground. We're basically a guinea pig, a multi-billion-dollar guinea pig, because they said it's a test ground. And then Michael Siegel, he's the director of Ground Game Texas, he says that this charter creates a process. And I want to impress on everybody, a multi-billion-dollar process. Brian Points from Points Consulting in that same article called the climate charter drastic and dramatic, that it's not a good policy to base, it's not a good idea to base policy on aspirations and slogans. Again, I want to tell everybody, multi-billion-dollar aspirations, and Sunrise Movement uses goals, not slogans. So multi-billion-dollar goals and slogans. So we need to remember that these people, number one, are globalists. They're not from El Paso. So El Paso, we can't turn our city over to globalist, multi-million-dollar vague aspirations and goals, and potentially a litigious charter. If a small $180 million one took $3.3 million to defend, and they lost anyway, imagine what a multi-million-dollar charter will cost the city in legal fees. It's vague. It's not concrete. They've admitted it. Take this to you when you go to the ballot box. This isn't El Paso's agenda. It's globalist agenda brought to us from Austin through this organization, Sunrise Movement. And it's led by youth, young people who, in my opinion, have not experienced life yet. Have no idea what life is until they get older. And they're the ones pushing this. So go out and vote and stay local. Vote no on Proposition K. Okay, we have that phrase in El Paso. Stay local.
Sure.
Support your small businesses. So now now it's our turn to support El Paso and stay local, and do not allow the globalists to come in and tell us what a climate agenda should be, especially if they know, and now we know, that climate agenda is not working globally. That ought to open somebody's eyes, because it's not going to work in El Paso. That's a sure thing. Regarding Congressman Escobar's, selection as co-chair,
yes,
nobody should be surprised. Number one, she's Hispanic. She advocates open borders. Hold your breath for May the 11th. She advocates for boys and men and girls and boys and girls and women's sports, because the bill that was passed in the House, not a single Democrat voted to protect our girls and women's sports. She's a Democrat. Abortion is no longer legal, safe, and rare. She supports, I believe, up to the 9th month. She's proud of President and what he's done with our country. I mean, nobody should be surprised that she's co-chair of his reelection campaign. She supports, she doesn't mind that the DOJ and the FBI have been politicized and weaponized. Why? Because she loathes President Trump. She went in on, I'm going to impeach the president. We're going to impeach President Trump. And they did. So, and then the children, they're not, my children, not my children. It's everybody's children, according to Biden. She supports him, so I'm assuming she supports his philosophy. So, I mean, good for her that she's not co-chair, but I really hope they lose, and they lose with high numbers.
No, fair enough. You're entitled to your perspective on that. Main reason I brought that up today is it kind of came out almost right before we were getting on air, and also the possibilities. I guess the part I'm most interested in is about what this might mean for campaigning in our area is very interesting to me, and we'll certainly keep our eye on that. But I think it would be reasonable to assume that she supports the president's platform if she's agreeing to be a co-chair of it. So I don't think that's an unreasonable conclusion to make.
How would it affect our politics here in El Paso? I don't follow that statement.
I mean, if there's going to be more campaigning, I mean, we've had presidential candidates come through our area, not all the time, but previously. But I mean, we've had occasionally rallies, occasionally things going on leading. I mean, most of the times they end up being big time activities. So maybe not totally affecting our local politics, what the local politicians are talking about, but affecting the people who come through our area in order to support this. I mean, I got the opportunity to have some conversations with some of the candidates and the people coming through town last time around. And so this part of it, there being a locally based person, being a part of, I mean, among maybe about a dozen or so, as I'm aware of, co-chairs of this, does raise questions about, okay, is there going to be more campaigning in town, or at least in the region, because of it? That's the part I'm getting at.
Andrew, the president was in the basement for 2020. He doesn't intend to debate. Representative Escobar wouldn't debate Irina Armendariz-Jackson. Samaniego wouldn't debate Kenneth. The Democrats are not debating. They have no desire to debate a candidate, and that's the same here in El Paso. I doubt that that's going to change. If it does, good, because we need to expose good people out there, good candidates that we just don't go in and blindly vote for Biden and Escobar because there are alternatives to them. But I don't see too much of a change in how they're going to campaign. Nobody's debating anybody. The Democrats, why? In strongholds like El Paso, why bother? And that's going to be, to me, that's going to be their national strategy. I could be very wrong. I don't know much about politics, but that's my opinion.
No, fair enough. And I get you here. Again, that's a possibility. I have no exact thing I can point to. Oh no, this is definitely going to change things. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm hopeful it will, as I often find myself randomly being optimistic about things. And I mean, as much as debates don't really necessarily shape policy, I certainly do appreciate it when someone can vociferously defend their point and their perspective when it comes to it. So we'd certainly love to see more debates on that. So again, just a preview, maybe expectation, cloudy crystal ball kind of moment for this coming campaign, particularly as we get closer to 2024. Your guess is really as good as mine, but that's maybe a little bit of my anticipation anyway.
I totally agree with you. We should have more exposure, but
sure,
I don't have faith in our politicians in El Paso. Sorry.
No, I understand that entirely. Well, appreciate the point in the call.
Andrew.
You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
You as well. All right, I think we got time to get one more quick call on the line. We do have Frankie MSC on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. I must be missing something here.
Hmm?
You know, and I've been paying attention, everything you're saying, and everybody else out there that's chiming in.
Sure.
But I at least 3 people, standard callers, bewildered Bob, befuddled Ben, Junkyard Jerry, vote no.
Sure.
And I hear what they say, but sometimes I get it's a convoluted conversation. I mean, where is their erudite aspect on what is exactly wrong with this? That's one. Number 2, and I pointed this out to you once before. This whole thing where they're going to do a study.
Right.
Now, think about this for a minute. Wait a minute. You do the study before you implement the plan. What is this thing where you're doing a study after the fact? This is driving me nuts. What's going on with that? Number 3. What do you hear? What are you hearing on any kind of? And I asked you this yesterday. Are you hearing anything on which way the vote is going? And that's my opening comment.
So to that last one there, no. I think it was an earlier comment. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Who was it? Maria Coleman saying that she was seeing an indication that was going seeming 50-50. I know that there's how many people who have come out to vote in any particular location. I'm super not aware of any like exit polling, certainly not ahead of election day that is being done, or like opinion polling of any like true scientific nature being done in our area. So I got nothing concrete I can tell for you. If you're going to go by demographics and how many people are going out to the polls in which age group, again, I mentioned earlier Bob Moore, editor of El Paso Matters, but also keeping a close eye on this, shows that more than half of all voters in and eligible to vote on particularly Prop K have been 65 and older. So if you're going to draw conclusions from that, I think you could. I mean, older voters significantly outweigh. They're more than 3/4 of all votes cast so far are 50 and above when it comes to this issue. So maybe if you draw some conclusions from that, then you can. I'm not going to try to, your first point there, I'm not going to try to speak for anyone, but I want to say that at least some of the issues have been brought up to me by others when it comes to reasons that they're opposed to it is, I mean, the potential cost of the purchase of El Paso Electric. I mean, yeah, there's the $4.3 billion amount of the recent purchase. There's the $9 billion number that's getting put forth on, well, what among the other things, utility itself has valued its purchase price as. So those are some of the specters, but I do believe to your middle point, if I got this one right, that it would be, okay, basically I see 2 parts to Prop K. There's the part that would be implemented as another commenter did ask, I believe Bernadette Bandicole, asking how long it would take for this to be implemented, if I'm not mistaken, that it would be kind of 2 parts. There'd be the more or less immediate part, or the short term of the increasing electrification. I mean, sure, there are goals out to 2045, but that kind of work, infrastructure, installation of solar panels would happen with starting in short order anyway. But then, yeah, it would be 8 to 10 years before then the purchase of El Paso Electric part of it would at the very least be possible to be implemented once those studies are done.
No. Okay, now hear this. And it just bugs the bejesus out of me, because somewhere along the line, somebody's not thinking this thing through. If you're going to put this proposal together, all of it, the water thing, the climate thing, and then the El Paso thing, and let's throw all these things in after the fact. Where is the advanced thought process in this? How can you possibly put together something as dramatic as this and then ask everybody to vote for it and then say, okay, you all voted for it. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out if it's going to work. What is this nonsense? I've never heard of anything like that. That's my point.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Well, tell you what, we got to end up taking that last break if we can even right now. So thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right, take care, Andrew.
And with that, okay, I think actually, you know what? We're just straight up out of time here for the show today. So we're just kind of not be able to come back for that last segment. We're just kind of leave it there for today. So we got a lot more coming up. We got a lot more discussions going on. Not all doom and gloom or very heavy political topics, shall we say. We also got other fun enough things going on in our region. So we'll talk more about what is going on with some of those events, including the Plaza Classic Film Festival in the coming days. But of course, we'll keep doing this every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. So until next time, until then, I want y'all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Northbound Memorial Highway at Edgemere, a multi-vehicle crash is blocking the right shoulder, causing some slowing. 54 southbound, still got 16-minute delays from Stan Roberts down to Kenworthy. I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot is a 10-minute delay. And eastbound Montana slow, McRae out to Zaragoza, 15-minute backup. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Tudor Dixon Podcast.
On the next episode of the Tudor Dixon Podcast, why is everyone so sensitive now? Is comedy being canceled? I'll talk about that and have some laughs with Michael Loftus. Catch the Tudor Dixon Podcast with new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, you know what I don't get? Why is that company always telling you to just do what? What is it? To just look like everybody else? Or maybe just pay way too much for your shoes? Well, at Skechers, we know what we want you to do. Just slip in. That's right, just slip in. To do hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Why? Because slip-ins are the easiest, most comfortable shoes ever. You don't have to bend down to put them on. You don't even have to touch them. Find slip-ins for the whole family at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or